prescription medication. So first I want to thank you for talking about Medicare for All. Everywhere I'm seeing you talk, I'm hearing that conversation come up, and universal health care is really important to us. And I want to stress how important the policies that talk about, how important it is to me that you support the policies that will penalize drug companies if they overcharge for prescriptions, because that's happened to us, where prescription prices go up to a point where they're unaffordable, and these are life-saving prescriptions for a life-threatening disability. So the policies that will hold drug companies accountable if they bring those prices up so high by revoking their patents, that's something we're watching really closely, and I love when I hear you talk about your support for that. I want to add that in addition to survival and medication, a lot of people with disabilities also struggle for inclusion. And my son had a case with the Department of Justice, with the Civil Rights Division 4 years ago. In Trump's administration, the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice has been deteriorated beyond recognition. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is that, and I wanted to raise awareness around that. I wrote myself notes because I know I'd be nervous. So on February 17th, I got to hear something you said to somebody else who asked about disabilities, and they asked specifically about people with disabilities in your staff and in the Senate. And you said you weren't sure about the Senate tracking how many people with disabilities they have, like they do with race and gender, and that you were going to go back and check about that, and also about how many people are employed within your staff. So I'm here today because I want to know what you found out, and I want to know that disability matters to you. I want to know whether you'll commit to reinstating a strong civil rights division in the Department of Justice if you're president, because people depend on that to preserve their right to inclusion. And finally, I'm just wondering what else you plan to do to support the disability community and repair the damage caused by the Trump administration, because it's harm to my family.
And I just, the people in the back, can you even hear that at all? No. So I'm so sorry, and I should have walked up with a microphone. But I want to repeat some of the things that she said. She said, first of all, she thought I was a very handsome person and very charismatic. And, no, I'm sorry. None of that. It's fake news. No, she very poignantly, her and her amazing son, who you can't see has a robust amount of hair, the two of them collaborated on a question. It really was two major parts. One is regarding disabilities and prescription drugs. And she thanked me for a lot of the legislation I've written and supported to drive down drug costs. One of the most important ones, which I'm very, very committed to, is this idea that other countries have a bar on prescription drug companies raising prices of drugs beyond the area median for other countries. And why don't we have that? You have drugs that are a fraction of the cost in other countries, and yet we raise our prices much higher than them. And what I want to do, and the legislation that I'm a sponsor of does, is it says, okay, if you do that, then we're going to penalize you by taking away your patent and allowing generics to get in and drive those costs down. And I think it's very important that we have not only negotiation for Medicare, not only importations from Canada, the bill I wrote with Senators Casey and Sanders, but also sticks that make sure that the prices in this country don't come up. The second thing she was talking about, which is to me very important, is just us being a nation aware that we have incredible Americans that are struggling with disabilities, some visible, some not, and we should have a level of fairness and justice that affects Americans with disabilities, which led her then she asked very pointed questions. Last time you were here, Cory, you talked about making sure that there are job opportunities for people with disabilities. You said you would go back and check, so I'm very happy to report to you we have hired people with disabilities in my office. I'm very proud of that, and it's something that we will continue to do. And then I have not yet made progress, but I really want to make sure. I was one of the people that came to the Senate and wanted all Senate staffers, Democrats, we come out to diverse populations to ask for their vote. We should all have to report the diversity of our staffs, gender diversity, race diversity, and I've won those battles, and I shouldn't even say they were battles. Chuck Schumer willingly did those things, but part of that is not people with disabilities, and I want to get that reporting, and I'm still working on that, and I hope you'll give me some time. I'm very proud of the diversity that's on my staff, people with disabilities, ethnic diversity, and even women. Right now, I've got women at the top of every one of my positions. As a senator, my chief of staff, my chief of legislation, my head of my state operations, even my chief lawyer, women of color, women of diversity, and I'm very proud to not just talk about these issues, but if you look at my staff, that's the decisions we make. And then the last one she made was almost like a gift of a question, because you have to understand that there's no senator that fights harder for having a civil rights division that really does things. And I have to say, I miss Obama, and I miss her husband too. Even under the Obama Justice Department, I was demanding more things that they were doing to be more aggressive. And now, within the Civil Rights Division, we've seen, as you said, my word, not yours, that sort of the moral vandalism that's going on in our Justice Department. They're pulling back from protecting children, people with disabilities, LGBTQ youth. In fact, not just the Department of Justice, but also in the Department of Education. They have a Civil Rights Division too that's leaving too many of our children more vulnerable. There will be, in your lifetime, should I be your president, no president that is more invigorating the Department of Justice and the Civil Rights Division more than I am, because I stand here today because of a Civil Rights Division that stood up and fought under the Kennedy administration, the Johnson administration, fought for the rights of my family members, and I'm going to continue that tradition of making sure that justice continues. So thank you. All right.